Welcome to Thoughts and Theories. Imagine living in a world where the ideas of good and evil were not what you think they are, where morality itself was not a set of universal truths, but a tool created by certain people to control others. This was the world that Friedrich Nietzsche wanted us to see. When he spoke of slave morality and master morality, he wasn't just talking about philosophy. He was talking about how societies shape our values, how power manipulates what we call good, and how most of us end up living by rules designed to keep us obedient without ever realizing it. Let's break this down in simple terms. Nietzsche believed that there are two kinds of morality in human history. The first one, which he called master morality, comes from the strong, the powerful, the confident individuals who create their own values. The second, slave morality, comes from the weak, the oppressed, those who cannot express their power directly and instead turn their weakness into a moral weapon. To understand this, imagine ancient societies. The rulers, the warriors, the nobles, they saw power, pride, and strength as good. They admired courage, wealth, intelligence, and independence. For them, being good meant being powerful, capable, and noble. Being bad simply meant being weak, cowardly, or small-minded. Their morality came from strength. Now look at the opposite side. The slaves, the peasants, the powerless. They could not win through strength, so they turned their suffering into virtue. They began to call humility good. They said obedience was good, patience was good, suffering was good, and revenge or pride were evil. They moralized weakness. Nietzsche argued that this inversion of values, turning weakness into virtue, was the birth of what we now call moral systems in religion and society. Think about it. When you were a child, what were you taught? Be humble. Don't be selfish. Turn the other cheek. Those who suffer will be rewarded later. All these ideas sound noble, but Nietzsche wanted us to ask a deeper question. Who benefits from these ideas? Because often, those who preach humility and obedience are the same ones who hold power. The more obedient you are, the easier you are to control. This is what Nietzsche meant when he said that society trains us to obey. From school, religion, and even work, we're taught to suppress our individuality in the name of being good. We're told to avoid standing out too much, to follow the rules, to not challenge authority. We're trained to feel guilt when we want power or when we desire more. Take a simple example: the workplace. You might work hard, create value, maybe even do more than your manager, but you're told to be grateful for the opportunity, to not be greedy, to stay humble. Meanwhile, those at the top accumulate wealth and praise because they dared to take power and make rules for themselves. The system rewards obedience but only tolerates ambition when it serves the powerful. Nietzsche believed that slave morality created a world where people glorify suffering instead of overcoming it. You're praised for enduring, not for rising. You're praised for being patient, not for challenging what's wrong. He called this the morality of resentment. The powerless resented the powerful, so they redefined goodness in a way that made their own weakness seem morally superior. Look around, and you'll see this everywhere. People admire those who struggle, but rarely those who win through strength. We celebrate victims, not creators. We pity the fallen, but envy those who rise. Society makes you believe that desiring greatness is arrogance, that wanting more is greed, that standing out is prideful. But to Nietzsche, these are not sins. They're signs of life. He wasn't saying that kindness or compassion are bad. He was saying that when these values are used to deny strength and individuality, they become chains. Real morality, he believed, comes from self-overcoming, from creating your own values based on your will to power, not from following someone else's rules. Now, some people misunderstand Nietzsche and think he was justifying cruelty or oppression. But he wasn't praising tyranny. He was pointing out that true morality should come from inner strength, not fear or guilt. The problem is that society's moral systems often disguise fear as virtue. You're told to be humble not because it's good for you, but because it keeps you from threatening the hierarchy. Think about religion for a moment. In many traditions, life on earth is presented as a test, a temporary suffering before a better afterlife. You're told to bear pain silently, to forgive endlessly, to not seek too much in this life. Nietzsche saw this as the ultimate form of slave morality, the promise of heaven as a reward for obedience. The weak invented heaven to punish the strong after death. Even in modern secular society, these moral echoes remain. Social norms encourage conformity. People are afraid to think differently because standing out brings judgment. We praise the selfless, but secretly admire the ambitious. We say money isn't everything, yet everyone works for it. The contradiction shows that our values aren't truly ours. They were inherited from a system that benefits from keeping most people compliant. Nietzsche's question was, what if you stopped obeying these inherited morals? What if you created your own? What if you decided what good and evil mean for you? For Nietzsche, the goal of life was not to obey, but to become who you truly are, to embrace your desires, your strength, your creative power. He called this the path of the Übermensch, or the Overman, a person who rises above herd morality and lives by self-made values. In today's world, you can see both moralities at play. The master morality still exists among those who shape culture, art, and innovation. They create, they lead, they break norms. The slave morality dominates in the masses. People seeking approval, fearing offense, and finding moral comfort in blaming others for their lack of power. Nietzsche's warning was not about politics or religion alone. It was about psychology. The more you internalize guilt and obedience, the more you distance yourself from your own potential. Society teaches you to admire mediocrity dressed as morality. You learn to say sorry for being confident, to downplay success, to equate ambition with arrogance. All these are ways of keeping the strong self asleep. Look at history. Great thinkers, artists, and leaders, Socrates, Da Vinci, Darwin, Tesla, they didn't live by the rules of the herd. They questioned everything, even when society called them wrong or immoral. Nietzsche saw them as examples of people who created their own morality through their will and creativity. So how do you recognize slave morality today? It's in every place where fear replaces courage, where guilt replaces curiosity, where conformity replaces individuality. It's when people prefer comfort over truth, safety over freedom, approval over authenticity. And what is master morality? It's not about domination. It's about self-mastery. It's the mindset of those who say, I will decide my values. It's living with strength, with honesty, without needing validation. It's refusing to let society's guilt define your worth. The real tragedy is that most people never realize this. They spend their lives obeying moral rules that were designed centuries ago for a different purpose. Nietzsche wanted to free people from that illusion, not to make them cruel, but to make them alive. In the end, the message of slave versus master morality is simple but uncomfortable. The morals you live by might not be yours. The guilt you feel might not come from truth, but from training. And the limits you think are moral might just be invisible walls keeping you obedient. Nietzsche's challenge to you is this: dare to question the values you were taught. Dare to ask who benefits from them. And dare to create your own path, even if society calls it wrong. Because only then, he believed, can a person truly live, not as a slave to morality, but as a creator of it. And maybe that's what freedom really means.